Baby cakes, it's fucking happening. Tea and Tarot is back with a vengeance. This is Tea and Tarot, where I'm going to sip tea and talk about tarot, because that is just what I do. I believe that was what I used to say back in the day, before Tea and Tarot was dead as a fucking dodo, before it became extinct like the woolly mammoth before it. But I am resurrecting it from the dead, as is my inalienable right as a witch, and it's come back. It's just come back. I've been asked so many times to bring it back, and here it is. Now the format is going to change somewhat. I am now not going to be selecting cards anymore with kind of pre-decided messages. I'm not going to be kind of consciously choosing cards before I come on camera and then talking about why I've chosen them and why they're relevant to the topic, because I think that was one of the reasons that I got some resistance to restarting the series up, because that does take time. Sometimes it's difficult for me to decide which cards I want to feature and why, and sometimes different cards would like jostle for position in my mind, and I wouldn't be able to get a good sense of what I actually wanted and why I was choosing the cards I was choosing, and it all became a little bit of a pickle. It all became a little bit muddled up in my mind. So I've decided this time that I'm just going to draw cards as I would for myself if I was having a little think about a topic, just kind of mulling it over and wanting to draw cards not in a really over the top way, not in a really regimented way where I've got spread positions and stuff like that and I'm kind of writing things down or filming it for myself, but more in a kind of offhand way where I just open up the deck and have a little look through, do some blind draws and see what comes to me in the moment. I think that will be the best way of doing it. It means I can do it more randomly, more spontaneously, and hopefully, fingers and toes and everything else crossed, we'll be able to get back on track with Tea and Tarot. I do hope so, because it is beloved by many. And like I said, I have been asked countless times to bring it back. I think literally as recently as I was asked was yesterday. That's how recently somebody asked me in the comments section underneath something on Facebook or YouTube or somewhere. Somebody said, bring back Tea and Tarot. And I've just heard nothing but that since I stopped doing it. So it's back by popular demand. Okay babes, for those of you who weren't around when Tea and Tarot was a thing on this channel, or you haven't gone through and checked out the playlist, the aim of the game with Tea and Tarot is literally just to draw 5 or 6 cards and base them on a particular theme and talk about how they relate to that theme. I'm going to drink tea throughout, and normally at the beginning of these videos I do talk about what tea I'm drinking, what is in my cup. Today I'm having a Heath and Heather blend, and it is an organic green tea with Moroccan mint. Now I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't normally get along with green tea. I do not vibe with the green tea. You know what it is? There's all of these delicious flavours, and some of them smell really good in the cup, and even the bag smells really good, but they all basically taste of green tea, and I just find that really odd. I find it odd that we would claim that a green tea is flavoured with Moroccan mint or salted caramel or whatever the fuck, and it never is flavoured with anything. It's just green tea, but it smells really sumptuous, doesn't it? It smells really sumptuous, so I find that kind of torturous, to be honest. However, green tea is really good for you for a number of different things, and I am purchased green tea as presents quite a lot for Christmas and birthday, because I guess it's a classy kind of a tea related present to get a person. So I am often in possession of some green tea. This was a gift very kindly bestowed upon me for no real reason by a friend of my Man Badgers, which is really lovely, and the bags smell off the fucking hook. I mean, ooh, that just smells like chewing gum. That actually smells like a freshly cracked chewing gum going round in your mouth. Oh, that is just so minty. But I have a suspicion it's just going to taste like really, really strong green tea, and there's just going to be no mint, but I don't know. Who knows? We'll have to see. I really like Heath and Heather normally, so we'll see how we get along. Look at this cup. How sophisticated am I with this cup and saucer? How terribly, terribly English do I appear with this cup and saucer? Tell me. Tell me in the comments below. Oh, now that is next level. Now I must say, I am happy with that. That is winner chicken dinner. That is the bang bang avocado salad. That is lovely. I'm not going to complain about that. I think I've been told a few times before, I've been advised by drinkers of green tea that you're not supposed to leave the tea bag in, and that's what I've been doing wrong. Now I'm wondering if that is the case, and if I should actually take this out now, just plonk this out now, because that green tea is amazing. I can actually taste the mint. I'm not even lying. I'm really rather impressed with that, so I'm going to take this bag out now before I ruin in everything. This cup was a birthday present from my man Badger's mother, my mother-in-law. Thank you so much, Karen, for this cup. It is everything. Makes me feel an extra 10% English, I must say, an extra 10% home counties, darling. Today I'm going to use my Mini Morgan Greer Tarot, and I want to get into a few messages and insights and tips and tricks that I think we could all use at the moment to help us to communicate more effectively and with more integrity, and in some cases whilst retaining our sanity in situations that are tense between us and other human beings. So wherever communication seems to be difficult, wherever we seem to be presented with somebody who's being passive aggressive or kind of talking in circles, or whether we are being passive aggressive and talking in circles, if we're struggling to get our point across, if there seems to be a lot of tension when we're conversing with someone and we want to understand how we can be our best selves and be authentic whilst at the same time kind of retaining that level playing field, I want to look at problems with communication, and I want to look at how we can actually use the messages of tarot to think about how to solve those problems. For me, I know that I am a very communicative person. I'm somebody who wants to talk it out, I want to hash it out, and I get particularly frustrated with people who are not really like that. It's not really so much people that struggle to articulate their emotions. I can be patient in the face of someone who struggles to articulate their emotions, but it's people that actually don't really want to go there, that don't want to have the discussion. And if there's tension between me and that person, or there's been a fundamental misunderstanding, obviously it's really frustrating for me as somebody who feels that talking is often the answer, to have somebody put up a wall. So it's hard to meet that person where they are in that moment, which is one thing. I definitely struggle with a degree of empathy and a degree of patience when people take a while to get round to how they want to say something. I find that a lot of people that I'm around on a daily basis tend to need to have 2 or 3 tries before they can actually really distill the essence of what they want to say. And I think that's actually quite normal. But because I'm not like that, because I am intrinsically connected to my throat chakra at all times, even annoyingly at 4 AM, you know, all the time, every moment of every day, I do sometimes struggle with realising that other people, you know, might not mean what they say first time. And I can take something quite personally, or I can, you know, be quite shocked about something, and someone can go, that's not really what I meant, just I'm trying to hash it out, I'm trying to figure it out as I'm saying it, to which my response will often be, well, don't, just hang on to it until you've thought it through. So for me, I think there's also this tendency to not be able to empathise with people, and I need to kind of, you know, relax into that a bit more and understand that people do have different communication styles. So I kind of know what my issues are, and I know a little bit, I've worked my way a little bit around what my communication style is and what needs to improve. I would definitely encourage you to do the same, and I'll just go through a few cards. I won't particularly have set positions or set themes. I'll just wax lyrical a little bit about what I think the card could be asking us to consider in terms of communication, how we can improve our communication skills with other people, and what we can do when tension arises when we're trying to communicate with someone. I love the backings for these cards, you know, guys. They're just really Henry Matisse, you know, they're the vibe that I get straight away. Okay, so the first card with a message for us today is the 9 of Swords. If you look at the 9 of Swords in the Morgan Greer card, I think it's great because it's actually a pair of clenched fists tied together with rope. You know, the arms are tied together. There is this sense of huge restriction, and this sense that there's no getting away from what is going on. There's no getting away from this sense of oppression and burden that is kind of bearing down in the form of all of these swords. When I look at the rope, I think about suppression, and I think that's really relevant for the theme of communication, because we very often suppress our true feelings. We suppress our true thoughts. We tend to either water down what we're thinking or feeling, or we actually refrain from saying it whatsoever, and we swallow it back, we swallow it down. And a lot of the time I think this can come from conditioning that we've experienced in our family line, in the family dynamics in which we grew up. We often learn our communication style, and we learn what is and is not acceptable in terms of communication from the kind of family setup that we were brought up in. Some people will find that they were just taught that children are to be seen and not heard, and so even from when they were very young they were taught that communicating their thoughts and opinions wasn't important, didn't matter, and was actually inappropriate. Other people have found that they grew up around a very domineering or very talkative sibling, and they felt like they always had to give way to that sibling, so they always felt like they were kind of swallowing things down. Some people have the same, but with a domineering or particularly talkative parent, and so they felt like they always had to give way to the parent, or they were constantly interrupted by the parent, and that can set a pattern of suppressing one's true emotions or swallowing things down. There are some people who have had a particularly difficult adult relationship, maybe an emotionally abusive relationship, or somewhat of an emotionally abusive friendship that they've gone through, and they may have been inside the fabric of that relationship for quite a long time, and actually during that relationship or friendship they really felt like they had to swallow their emotions down for their own safety, to avoid abuse or to avoid ridicule, and that can actually set a pattern that wasn't actually even there in childhood, you know. So maybe for some people in childhood they were pretty outgoing, they were pretty happy, pretty outspoken, and then in adulthood something happened that made them feel as though they had to swallow things down. And when we don't talk about how we feel, and when we don't give ourselves a chance to express what it is that we need or what it is that we are afraid of, we can start to feel that energy of suppression everywhere. We can feel chained, we can feel bound, we feel restricted, and that actually can bleed outwards into the way that we live our lives. It can affect the way that we go after our ambitions. It can affect how bold we are in the relationships we choose to pursue. It can affect everything. So I would definitely recommend that the Nine of Swords is maybe asking us all to go back to how we were raised, first of all, the way that we were brought up, and think about what might have happened there and what we might have learned there that could have affected our ability to communicate openly and be honest with people. And I also think it might be useful for us to think about anything in adulthood that might have blocked up the throat chakra, that might have made us afraid to speak up when we were a little bit older. And I think obviously every single person is going to have a different exploration of this, and it'll be really interesting to see what comes up. I'd love to know in the comments below, any of you who are willing to share your stories of feeling as though your ability to communicate openly was suppressed in childhood or in adulthood, and maybe you're trying to get back to a sense of your own permission to speak openly about things when you feel you want to or need to. Let's go for another card now. I really enjoyed that first card. I'm happy that came up. Okay, so the second card with some messages for us on the theme of communication is the Ace of Cups. Oh, I love this card. I really love this card. I did a lot of work with this card last year and spoke about, you know, working from the overflow, and how the Ace of Cups is very much my archetype for that idea of taking the cream off the top and really making sure that your own cup kind of runneth over before you actually give anything to anyone else. And so I'm very close to the Ace of Cups. I have a really special place in my heart for the Ace of Cups. I have a special place in my heart for this organic green tea and Moroccan mint from Heath and Heather. You know what? I took that tea bag out at exactly the appropriate time. I think that's what I've realised. I think actually, if anything, you should take the tea bag out what feels like slightly early from green tea, you know? So this is something that I'm going to try from now on. I can't believe I've gotten to the age of 32 and it's only now that I'm like, maybe I leave the tea bag in too long. It's fucking ridiculous, but there we are, you know? You learn something new every day, or at least you finally get to the point where you're realising something that people have been telling you for years. One day eventually, and today is that day for me when it comes to green tea. I'm finally here. I've finally worked out how it's done. The Ace of Cups is urging me to talk about the gift of vulnerability in our communication with other people. I think that when we are honest and open about our feelings, we have to be brave to do that in many situations. There are of course going to be situations and relationships where you feel fully comfortable to just speak about the things that make you feel most vulnerable, the things that you usually try to hide from people, the things that maybe have a bit of shadow content in them and that kind of thing. And when you can experience that incredible sense of having that safe space held for you, it's a beautiful feeling. However, there are many other areas of life and many other scenarios in life where when we speak out about something that makes us feel vulnerable, there is a lot of courage involved in that speaking out, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. Often we can know that it is the right time to be vulnerable and say what is closest to our hearts, what is most really pressing upon us. But of course we worry about being judged, we worry about the consequences, we worry about being alienated, being rejected, being thought of differently. And I think that is why vulnerability in communication is the greatest gift, because we have to be willing to sacrifice something in order to do that. And that is a really big thing. And that's also why it can be incredibly hurtful when we say something in all honesty and with the best of intention to somebody that we trust or love, and they walk away from us because of it. that can be very traumatic, and that can require a very long healing process. And it can actually be one of those things that I mentioned in the last card that happens during our adult lives that makes us suppress our honest communication from that point on. If there has been a point in your adult life where you've really been honest with somebody about something that it was very difficult to be honest with them about, and their reaction was to slight you or judge you or walk away from you or treat you as though you did it for some malicious intention, that can really stop you from being vulnerable in your communication in the future. And, you know, most people with enough emotional intelligence at some point begin to realise that it's really affecting them, that that situation they went through is really affecting them, and they need to come to a point of healing so that they can begin to open up to people again. When we communicate openly and honestly with people that we are forging relationships with, that's when we really get to pull a few layers back, we get to dive deeper, we get to really have that exchange, and it's a beautiful thing. And if you're suppressing anything emotionally, or if you're suppressing huge waves of your emotional content because you are afraid of being judged or you're afraid of being rejected, then you're actually in a sense denying yourself those deeper layers of connection that you could have with the human beings in your life who you love and care for. So it's important to think about what you are denying yourself when you are suppressing your emotions in that way. Take some time to think about the last time somebody was vulnerable in their communication with you. Think about the last time that somebody really opened up to you in a way that you feel might have taken real courage. It might have taken a lot of guts. It might have taken a lot of moxie to actually open up like that. Think about how it made you feel. Did it make you feel honoured? Did it feel like a special moment? Did it feel a little bit scary? Were you worried about what you were going to say in response? And what is your relationship like with that person now? And how has it changed you to have their vulnerability and be offered that gift from them? And also think about when the last time was that you made yourself vulnerable in your communication with another person. What was that like? What was it about? What did it give to you? And what did you get from it? Okay, let's go for one more card. And I've literally only got a few minutes because I've got a client. Ooh, okay, third and final card with a message about communication is the Three of Cups, which is an awesome card to receive for this particular theme, of course, because one can only guess that these three are going to communicate. Obviously, in this particular deck, they're looking quite intently towards us as though they're having their picture taken, as though they're having a portrait painted. This is very different from the way the Three of Cups is normally portrayed, with the women dancing together, you know, in a circle. So there's something quite intense about this and something really kind of purposeful and direct about this, which is great. And I think it really lends itself to the theme of communication, because if you look at these three women, we can actually look into their faces, we can see them, we feel as though we're having an honest dialogue or an interface with them. We're looking into their eyes, they're looking into our eyes. So there's a sense of openness, honesty and acceptance there. One thing the Three of Cups often makes me think of is group dynamics, particularly group dynamics in adulthood, and how there is often a lot of very intricate, very tangled emotion connected to the theme of group dynamics. And this is often because when we were children, there were issues in the playground, maybe issues with our siblings or issues with our cousins, issues with fitting in, maybe we were a bully at school, maybe we were bullied at school, we will have had key experiences with other children that really affected us and really shaped the way that we think about group dynamics and about the role that we play within a group. And when we reach adulthood, we can take a lot of that insecurity with us, and it can shape the way that we communicate. You may have noticed in your own life that you may have gone to a group meditation class or a retreat of some kind, or a kind of adult class of some sort, and you may have noticed that the way that you communicated and interacted with the other people in that group situation was very much shaped by things that happened to you like years ago, you know. But those things that happened to you a long time ago will have made their mark on you, and they will have made you feel as though you need to adopt a certain role within a group dynamic. You may also feel when you're in groups with other people that you categorize certain people into certain assumptions or certain judgments that you have about them. You may want to distance yourself from certain people because you see them as domineering, or you see them as being very similar to a certain family member that used to criticize you growing up, or a certain sibling who is very overbearing. You might want to detach yourself from people who seem to have certain characteristics or give off a certain energy. Likewise, you might find yourself having a more codependent approach towards other people in the group whom you may feel are safe or reliable. Again, a lot of these behaviours can stem from stuff that happened a long time ago that really had an effect on you, usually during your formative years or during the adolescence, which was, you know, often very very chaotic and where you were in a very vulnerable state and still getting to know yourself. So I think sometimes when we're in adulthood, we need to assess the way that we behave in a group from a new place quite often. And sometimes when we actually evolve in our way of being, or we learn things about ourselves as human beings, again, that causes us to have to reassess what we are like when it comes to group dynamics, how we actually function in the presence of a group, and whether or not we're bringing our insecurities or our bad behaviours or our projections into a group situation. I invite you to consider how you tend to operate in group dynamics, and you might want to think about how you operate around your family, around your friends, and then around maybe the people that you study with or the people that you play sports with. You might just want to think about overall how you tend to respond. You might want to think about how you tend to respond in crowds, or how you tend to respond when you're meeting people who are basically strangers. Think about a number of different scenarios and consider what kinds of bad habits or unhelpful habits you have around groups of people that you might want to consider working on and altering or reassessing from this new place in your life. How do you tend to communicate in group dynamics? How do you communicate who you are? How do you communicate your interests? Do you feel after you've spent time in a group that you've really been able to express yourself fully and enjoy the group dynamics? Or do you feel very drained, or as though you were undervalued, or as though you stayed too quiet? And if you do tend to feel unsatisfied after spending time in a group, take some time to figure out why that is and think about how you might like to make changes. Okay, this has been Tea and Tarot for the first time in a very, very long time. I have enjoyed you. I hope you've enjoyed me. I've enjoyed the cards, and I've enjoyed my green tea. Much love, doll faces. Until next time, blessed be. I'm a poet, and I didn't even know it. Hi there, baby cakes. I hope you enjoyed the very first comeback edition of Tea and Tarot after a very long hiatus. You can expect lots more Tea and Tarot in the pipeline. And if you haven't been around for that long, if you're not aware of what I do or what I provide in terms of products and services, please do head on over to www.kelly-maddox.com and click on the Work With Me tab. And there you will find my counselling sessions, my tarot mentoring that I do. You'll find a whole host of readings that you can choose from me. And I offer readings in Skype format, video format and email format as well. So if you want to pop along there, there's also a sale section if you want to get yourself something on a budget. And if you want to work with me one-on-one and you want to know what the cards have got to say for you, or you want to go through some counselling or mentoring with me, then you can go right ahead. Feel free. I love meeting up with new clients. I love expanding my business. I love expanding my skill set and learning more about the audience members who watch me and imbibe my content. So if there's something I can do to help you, let me know. Come along, click add to cart, and we can work together and make 2017 into an even more awesome year for both of us. Okay, much love, blessed be.